Today, a Necron player is going to review the new Tyranid Codex, and it's coming right up.
Necrons!
Love you. Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, today we are looking at the new Tyranid Codex. This is something which Richard and I have got. Richard from CM Wargames, link to his channel in the description below. We've got this to improve our battle reports on the channel. Another army on the channel, because yes, I have Tyranids as well as my Necrons and quite a few other armies. But today we're talking about this new Tyranid Codex. Now, I know that this book has been leaked previously a few weeks ago, the whole codex, all of the rules. However, I didn't look at those leaks. I don't like to do leaks. I like to have the book and read it for myself, make my own judgments, and you know, after spending money to buy a book, well, I want to sort of enjoy it, not knowing already what's in there. So yeah, I haven't looked at those leaks. I have looked at the Warhammer community posts, and well, you can't really get away from it. On social media, I've seen a few tidbits of what's in here, and from what I can tell, it looks a really good codex. However, I'm not going to review this codex totally on rules. It's going to be slightly different to maybe what other sort of Tyranid players might do, because I haven't played Tyranids now for quite some time, since I believe 7th edition. So it's been quite some time, and I'm going to look at this book from a point of view of an old Tyranid player coming back into playing the codex. So let's take a look at this codex and find out what I think. So first of all, let's talk about the cover of this book. I like it. It's pretty cool, I must admit. It's not my favourite Necron Codex cover. It's okay, but not my favourite. But that's pretty cool. I like it. Now, of course, as always, when you open the book, you've got quite a bit of sort of fluff and pictures, and I enjoyed flicking through these, looking at the pictures. Some very, very cool pictures, especially my favourite, this one right here. Hopefully you can pick that up on the camera. Love that picture. It just makes me want to play Battlefleet Gothic. I do have a Battlefleet Gothic army, but a large Eldar force. But I've always wanted a Tyranid force because the miniatures look so cool. And of course, I've always wanted a Necron force as well because, oh, it's Necrons. But yeah, I love that picture. Very, very nice. There's not a huge amount of fluff in here. Some of the high fleets are covered a little bit more than others. And there's a small picture somewhere. Let me just find that for you. Here we are. So that is a picture of the different fleets, which yeah, I think it'd be nice if there was more on the painting. I've always said that about the codexes, you know, maybe how even to paint some of these fleets like the old days. But you've got some pictures of the fleets. My fleet, the Stinger High Fleet, is one of my own doing, so I made up the fleet, and the colour scheme, it's basically black with yellow highlights. I think it looks pretty cool, and it's easy to paint, which is one of the main things, especially when you're painting a lot of bugs. And I'm very proud to say that every single Tyranid miniature that I own is painted. The last count I had about 7,000 points, but I've added to that, and of course the points have all changed now, so I don't actually know how many points. It's probably nearer 10,000, I would have thought. But yeah, I suppose the closest one in the actual fleets themselves from the Codex is the Jormungandr, however it's pronounced, which is like a black and yellow, but they've got red claws and things, so mine is definitely different. And to be fair, I painted my fleet colours before Games Workshop actually made fleets as such. So I started back in, I think it was 4th edition, my Tyranids. I played them in 4th, 5th, played them in 6th and 7th, but only a couple of games, and I haven't played them in 8th, and of course we're in 9th now. and I haven't played them yet, so I'm looking forward to getting them on the table. Now this codex comes with one new unit, the Parasite of Mortrex. However, I'm pretty sure this has been in the codex previously as a unit, but not as a model. So back in, I think it was 5th edition codex, there was quite a few units actually where we had entries but no miniatures. There was the Mycetic Spore, the Drop Pod, the Tervigon, the Parasites of Mortrex, I'm pretty sure was in there as well. It's been a while since I've seen it, and I don't have my old codex handy. But the Duma Melantai, of course, as well, was another one of my most favourite miniatures. Well, units, although I made my own miniature. Lots of them I did make my own miniatures. However, there was a bit of a legal battle, I believe, with the Chapter House Studios making miniatures for those units where GW didn't have any miniatures. So they made another codex and took all of those out, and Tyranids went into a really bad place until they made the actual miniatures, like the Tervigon miniature came out, and at long last we have the Parasites of Mortrex. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that has been a unit before without a miniature. So I didn't buy that miniature, even though I'm buying the book, and to be fair, like my Eldar army, my plan was to play the army, but only the units which I have. So not to be painting any more units, well, I have no units to paint because they're all painted, but also not to buy them. However, it's just one miniature. It would be pretty cool to have this miniature and paint him in my old colour scheme. So I think I might buy this miniature at some point, but I'm in no rush to do it. But I think it's on the cards because, hey, it's only one miniature. So, yeah, then we have some more sort of pretty pictures of the different units. Pretty cool. And then we come into the rules. Now, I have to say, when I first started reading this codex, I thought, oh my god, GW, what are you doing? These rules are frigging complicated. I mean, I thought the Eldar rules were complicated, but these seem really complicated. They seem very, very bloated. There's so much reading for just a small little rule. Yeah, I wasn't looking forward to this codex until I sat down and read it properly. So what I mean is, at first, and I think we all do this, when we first look at a new codex, we tend to flit about. We tend to sort of, oh, what's this? Oh yeah, what's that? You know, and you don't really get the big picture. The best way to do it is to start where it says the rules and read each section as you go along, and then things start to click in place. Now, I think they click into place a bit easier if you already have one of these 9th edition codices, because there's quite a few things which are similar but with different names. But if this is your first codex, just like I think the Eldari Codex, it's going to be a bit of a minefield. You're going to take quite some time to get used to it, and there is a lot of rules and sort of a lot of flicking around for the different units. And yeah, I wouldn't like to be a first player in 9th edition playing this codex. I mean the Necron Codex is not too bad, but that's probably because I'm very familiar with it now. But I mean, this one is just a nightmare for a first player. Anyway, my suggestion: take your time, read from the beginning of the rules, each section, and sort of gradually get used to them. So of course we have the standard sort of Battleforge rules and match play rules, etc. on the first page, and then you have the detachment abilities. You've got the Hive Tendril detachment, where you have a few extra sort of special rules like rare organisms, so you can only have one Hive Tyrant model and each Hive Tendril detachment. Obviously troops are objective secure if you've got the Hive Tendril detachment. And then anything else? Yes, you gain the Hive Fleet Adaptations abilities, which is effectively like the Dynasty codes. Now the Hive Fleets are next, and it tells you a little bit here about obviously the Warlord trait and the Psychic powers, the stratagems, and just like the Eldar Codex, which I really liked, is the actual different fleets. have all of the special rules on one page. So you've got, like, this is the Behemoth ones, Behemoth. Forgive my pronunciations of these stupid names. But you've got the Warlord trait, you've got their own dedicated stratagem, you've got all their abilities all on one page, and I'm liking that. You don't get that with the Necron Codex. I think that's one of the improvements that they've made on these new books. And you've got the traditional fleets, which I remember from their previous codex. I'm not sure if I had the previous codex or the codex before. It's been a bit of a it's been a while, let's say. But you have Kraken, Leviathan, Gorgon, Jormungandr, which when I played my last game, this is the one that I used. Because you had, I believe, cover saves in the open. I was playing a bit of a swarm army at the time. I've been looking at some of these. We'll talk about these fleets in a second. Kronos, Hydra, and then you've got the custom ones. And the custom ones is quite interesting. You've got a splinter fleet, where effectively you can use some of the abilities from the ones that we've just said. And then you've got the biomorphologies, where there's 3 sort of boxes, and you can choose one from each box, up to 2 abilities. A bit like the Dynasty codes, really. So I like that, and it all works well. And I've been looking at these, and what I've done is my first game is going to be 1,000 points, and I'll be playing against Richard. He'll be playing Necrons, and my first game, with the army which I've got so far, I'm not going to spoil what army it is, but I think the Behemoth fleet is going to be the best one suited to my army, and it seems pretty good. To be fair, they all seem pretty good. That's what I've noticed about the Codex. There's a lot of good stuff in here, but I think this one is going to work quite well, because you get what do you get? You get +1 to strength on the turn that you charge, or you are charged, or make a heroic intervention. And then the adaptive one, which is basically the second one. The second ability is you can re-roll charge rolls. So I think +1 to strength, re-roll charge rolls. It's quite good. And the adaptive one, you are able to change. So that's the bonuses here. So you've got your main ability, and then you've got an adaptive ability, and then you have the hyper adaptation, effectively at the beginning of the game. So you don't do it each turn, but at the beginning of the game, if you come up against an army, you think this trait's going to do nothing against them, you can change it out, that adaptive one, to 1 in the little charts that we saw earlier, and it tells you which charts you can choose from. It's quite a nice thing to have, to be able to just change up and just adapt to the opponent's list. Obviously, Necrons have nothing like this, and this codex definitely makes the Necron Codex sort of look very old, really. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. It tells you, obviously, it's got its own psychic powers here, and you've got your own biomorph relic. The relic is add 1 to damage characteristic of the bearer, pretty good. And you've got your own CP as well, which is basically, if your unit dies before you take it off of the board, it can assault, which is pretty good, although it looks like it's 2 CPs. So I'm going to go with this this high fleet for my first list, and I'm looking forward to playing it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So stratagems, I have to be honest, I haven't really looked at these stratagems too much, because, you know, I didn't want to sort of overindulge myself with too many rules, and I've just looked at some of the stratagems which might work well with my army that I'm going to play, my first army. Obviously, there was a bit of an uproar on Facebook, especially the Necron page, regarding Endless Swarm, where you can obviously bring back miniatures. So use this stratagem at the start of your command phase. Select 1 Endless Storm multitude unit from your army, and up to D3 +3 models destroyed. can be added back. And people were saying, well, you know, that's like basically like a form of RP. You know, Tyranids have always been able to bring units back or bring models back, so it's not a new thing, you know, with the Tervigon, etc. Actually, there's quite a few things in here. The Mortrax miniature can sort of add scarabs, where you don't actually have to sort of reserve points for those, they're just there free. And then obviously you have things like the spore mines, which can, you know, come onto the table without having to take up reserve points. So, you know, Tyranids have been able to do that, and you know, that's not an ability which I would be annoyed about, because yeah, they can do it, and that's it. And we know, we all know about Codex creep, so you know, at some point hopefully the Necrons will you know, up their game with their Codex, either by a new Codex, and we might have to wait to 10th edition, but whatever, you know, I enjoy playing Necrons. It's my favourite army, and nothing will stop me regardless of the rules. So, you know, rules are rules, rules change, armies change, and that's the way of 40k, you know, that's how it is. So we've got the adaptive physiologies, adaptive traits, where you can pay points and then you can add these to some of your units, which is pretty cool. I had 20 points left in my list when I made it, so I've used the precognitive sensoris, which is basically a -1 to hit, I believe. Hold on, let's have a check. Oh no, fight first. That's the one. Yes, fight first. I had 20 points left over. I thought, actually, that's pretty good. So I've got fight first on one of my units, which you'll find out when my list comes out. So yeah, you've got those in there, and they range from 15 points to 25 points. Then you have the Warlord traits. I had a look at the Warlord traits. I am going to use the High Fleet Behemoth's Warlord trait, but some of these look really good actually. The same with the Psychic Powers. They again look pretty good. I haven't looked too closely at them because I have to be honest, I don't have any Psychers in my first Tyranid list. And then the relics, again some, you know, half decent relics in there. I'm going to use the Behemoth relic because I think it works well. It does what I need it to do for my particular army. And then of course the chapter approved rules for the secondaries, which I haven't looked at, to be honest, because I haven't picked my secondaries for my list yet. I will do, but you have those in there. Let's have a quick look at one. Purge the enemy. Score 3 victory points if you gained 1 or more command points during the battle due to this objective. Score 1 victory point for each enemy character model in each enemy unit champion. That was... See, this is what happens to me. It's like, I think, oh yeah, I'm going to read that. And I start reading and it just goes on and on and on. And I think, oh, you've got to be patient when reading the rules. I'm not even going to read that anymore. I can't be bothered. Can't be bothered, GW. Your rules are too bloated. Crusade. Massive section on Crusade, which personally I don't care about. And I think that the Crusade rules should just literally be either right at the front or right at the back, but not right between the main rules. Okay, then we have the datasheet abilities, and it just goes through things like death from below, which is basically like the deep strike, but it's from under the ground. And then we have Shadow of the Warp Synapse. While a friendly High Fleet unit is within 6 inches of this unit, that unit automatically passes morale tests. So that's what Synapse does now. It's not quite as what it used to be. There are some Synapse bonuses throughout the Codex as well, but yeah. And then Shadow of the Warp, which is subtract 1 from a psychic test taken by an enemy unit. Each time that unit suffers a perils of the warp, it suffers an additional mortal wound. Pretty nice. You then have something called synaptic link. Look at this. Look at this. What the? Surely they could make this rule much simpler than this. It's pretty obvious what it is, I suppose, but it's a long way of saying it effectively. So effectively you can link up synapse creatures to sort of extend the bubble range, effectively is what they're saying. Okay, synaptic imperative abilities. Right. Okay, yes, I remember reading a little bit about this now. If every unit from your army has the Hive Tendril keyword excluding unaligned units, and each of those units, excluding living artillery units, is from the same Hive fleet, then synapse units from your army gain the synaptic imperative ability depending on which one is currently active for your army. So, yeah, this is basically like an extra ability for a synaptic creature, and I believe when I read the small print you can only use it once per turn for each ability. And I couldn't get my head quite around this, I must admit. I think it's one of those that I read and thought I'll come back to that, and I haven't before reading this, before making this video. But yes, so you've got, let's for example take the Trigon Prime, Thrashing Demise. Whilst the synaptic imperative ability is active for your army and a friendly Hive Tendril unit is within 6 inches of this synapse model, each time you roll a dice for the death throws ability of a model in that unit, add 3 to the roll. Each time a model is destroyed in that unit as a result of a melee attack, if that model does not have a death throws ability, roll 1d6. On a 6, the attacking model unit suffers 1 mortal wound after making all of its attacks. Yeah. So many. I mean, is it me? Is it me? Or are these rules just... they're hard. Trying to remember all of these in a game. I don't know, 9th edition just seems... it's not like an easy to play game. I mean, 8th edition I think was, certainly when it first started. Maybe 9th was when it first started. I mean, they always said we're going to have the core rules and the rest of the rules are going to be in the Codex. But I don't know, it just seems... I think that 9th edition is probably the most complicated edition of all time. What do you think? Let me know in the comments box below. Is 9th edition the most complicated edition we've ever had? Right, and then we come to the data cards for the different units. And I'm not going to talk that much about them. What I am going to tell you is that the Morlock stroke Trigon miniature is my favourite Tyranid miniature. Actually, it's not my favourite Tyranid miniature. It's my favourite miniature of all time, yes. Beating even all of the Necron ones. Even though I do like, obviously, a lot of the Necron miniatures, I like the Trigon stroke Morlock. I mean, I think the Morlock is my favourite, but the Trigon's pretty close. But I like the tongue and the jaw of that Morlock. Very, very cool. And I actually have a themed army list that I used to play called the Lock list, and it was built around 3 Morlocks. So I've been looking at the Morlocks, of course, in here. The Terror of the Deep seems to have changed quite a bit, and we're looking at the points. And of course, more importantly, because I got a bit naffed off with the Eldar Codex, where they're taking the Dire Avengers out of the troops, which means with the models that I have, I can no longer make a battalion detachment. So I was interested to see what they've done with this here. And correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a long time since I played the Tyranid Codex, but I thought the Morlocks used to be heavy support. Well, now they're fast attack. And also we've got Ripper Swarms. Didn't they used to be troops? They are fast attack. There, the Trigon is fast attack, and the Trigon Prime is now a HQ. It's quite interesting. Troops wise, we've got Gargoyles as troops, and they used to be fast attack. or at least when I last played them, they were fast attack. Hormagaunts, Termagaunts, Tyranid warriors. What about Gene Stealers? They used to be troops. Gene Stealers are elites. We've had a big switch up here of where the units are. I did notice there's quite a few sort of entries where if you take a particular unit, you can take another unit without taking up a battlefield slot. I think that was on some of the HQs. The Broodlord, of course, being a HQ. The Neurothropes is now a HQ as opposed to an update. I had a look thinking, well, if the Neurothropes is a HQ, basically, is he going to have the Doom of Melantai old rules? He doesn't. I'd love to have seen Doom of Melantai in here, but anyway. So I think if you take Zoanthropes, you can have the Neurothropes as a free slot, so it doesn't take up the HQ. So I think the reason why they've changed everything around, a bit like most of the other books, is there's so many units now, because they want to sell so many models. I don't think the armies have ever had so many units as they do now. I suppose each edition they want to introduce a new miniature. I mean, we only got one with the Tyranid Codex, but obviously, like the Necrons, got loads of new miniatures. So they're having to adjust all the slots to make it sort of even and easy to take a selection of the units, I suppose. But yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. Definitely some switching around of the units. And then at the back you just have the glossary, the reference sheet, and obviously all the weapons profiles, and the code in the back for using it on the app, and a pretty picture on the back. Now, of course, I've got the data cards here sitting on the table, so I've got these because whilst all these do is increase the price of the codex, because you have to buy them as well. You don't have to. I like to, because I find them very, very useful. You know, they are really useful. You've got psychic powers in there. You've got your command protocols. No, you haven't. You've got your... What's it called? You've got your psychic powers. You've got your CPs. Yeah, command protocols. I can see where I got it from. You've got your CPs in there. Your stratagems. That's the word. You've got your stratagems in there. And I just find them really useful because you could just pick out the ones which are useful to your army, and then you can have them on the table so you can easily access them, and it saves you flicking through these and working out what's what. It's all there, and you don't have to have all the ones which you're not going to use out. So I would recommend them, even though obviously it's a very clever way of going to workshop of increasing the price of the codex, which is already pretty expensive. Right, with that done and said, because obviously I can't speak and I can't think, we are going to end the video. But before you go, how about checking out my army? Here is a video of my full Stinger High fleet that I had before I added more units to it. So 7,000 points, check it out. And of course, if you want to see my Eldar Codex review as well, there's that video. And here's a video of some of my other battle reports. Thanks for watching.